Anybody calls the board meeting is at 5:30, not 6:30.
Okay.
The email I sent out had the wrong time.
Good morning. And welcome to Gentle Reads or Conversations with Your Director, depending on, how your morning's going. We're in chapter 6. Our last chapter ended with someone collapsing on the floor of Cheryl's shop in Blessings in Disguise by Nancy Mayle. Let's see what happens next. Are you sure you're feeling better? Cheryl wiped Martha's face one more time with a cool cloth she'd prepared. She and Rachel were in the office while Lydia and Esther watched the shop. Yes, I'm fine, Martha said, gently pushing Cheryl's hand away. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make a scene. I haven't been feeling well. Cheryl walked to the bathroom and put the damp washcloth in the sink. She wondered what to say to the distressed woman. She was clearly upset. It was obvious to her that Martha and Rachel were trying to hide something. We need to go home, Rachel said when Cheryl came back into the office. Martha needs to rest. She gave Cheryl a tremulous smile. I would appreciate it if you would not tell anyone about Martha's condition. We would not want anyone to worry unnecessarily. Cheryl nodded. I won't say anything, but I can't speak for Esther and Lydia. Rachel frowned and she reached out to grab Cheryl's arm. Perhaps you could ask them to keep the situation quiet. I can do that, but I'd really appreciate it if you'd tell me the truth. I've no idea what you mean, Rachel said, the color draining from her face. For a moment, Cheryl wondered if she might faint, just as Martha had. A panicky thought crossed Cheryl's mind that she might have thrown Rachel into early labor. Please sit down, she said to the Amish woman. Cheryl helped her onto the chair next to her cousin. Then Cheryl walked around the desk and sat down in the desk chair. Rachel appeared to have regained her composure. Look, she said gently, I don't usually get into other people's business, but I'm afraid I have to this time. You reacted to a note left for me. I want to know why. She held up her hand. And you might as well tell me who you really are unless you recently became Amish. You're hiding your true identity. What do you mean? Martha asked. Cheryl could see the fear in the woman's eyes, and it touched her heart. Your earlobes are pierced, and although I can't see much of your hair, I can tell it was streaked a few months ago. And your nails. Those nails are professionally manicured. She swung her gaze to Rachel. You can trust me, Rachel. I don't plan to tell anyone what you share with me, but whatever's going on seems to have involved me as well. I think you need to let me in on it. Don't you? Rachel's eyes locked onto Martha's, and they stared at each other for several seconds before Martha sighed and leaned back in her chair. I'll explain everything, she said, but if you tell anyone else, I'll have to leave town, and that could be very dangerous. Cheryl nodded. All right. Do you know Janie Henderson? Yes, she owns Sunshine Stables. She comes in here sometimes. A very nice lady. Martha nodded. Yes, she is. Janie and I went to high school together. My real name is Abby Harper. A few months ago, I ran into Janie at our 20-year reunion in Canton. Although I tried to hide it, Janie could tell that. She stopped talking and looked to Rachel for help. Let's just say that for her own safety, Abby needed to leave her husband, Rachel said softly, before her situation got any worse. Abby nodded. Sometimes makeup can't hide everything. Her voice was so soft, Rachel almost couldn't hear her. I'm so sorry, Cheryl said. So why are you here in Sugar Creek? Abby took a deep breath, as if trying to draw in some kind of inner strength. Janie told me I couldn't go back, couldn't allow Jerry to hurt me again. As Abby wrapped her arms around herself, Cheryl noticed she was trembling. She fought back tears of compassion. I did go home, but only long enough to pack. She was afraid he would try to force her to remain under his control, Rachel interjected. She had no choice but to disappear. Abby nodded. Yes, in the past, threats to leave caused nothing but fights. He told me if I ever tried to leave him, he would kill me. I believe him. Did you call the police? Cheryl asked. Abby sighed. No. We live in a small town in Nebraska. Jerry went to school with the police chief. They're buddies. I couldn't trust him to take my side. He might have. Abby nodded. Yes, maybe, but I was too afraid to take a chance. So you came here, to Sugar Creek? She nodded. Yes, I took a tour bus here under an assumed name. Once I was in town, Janie introduced me to Rachel. She agreed to let me stay with them, hide out as an Amish woman. The idea was to disappear for a while and then contact a woman's shelter when I felt it was safe. Why haven't you done that? Because a friend who knows us told me that Jerry is on the warpath. He is determined to find me, and my friend said he was staking out women's shelters in the area. I realize they don't release information about their clients, but, well, Jerry is very persistent. I was afraid he'd figure out where I was hiding. He's already been to Canton asking old classmates who I talked to at the reunion. I've been worried he might come here because of Janie. He knows we were friends. Cheryl frowned. But what does that have to do with the note? As soon as she asked the question, she was sure of the answer. It was his handwriting. Yes, Abby nodded. I would know it anywhere. Although Cheryl didn't want to add to the woman's fear, she quickly told her about her experience in the corn maze. I have to wonder if that was your husband. Abby put her hand to her chest. Oh, no, I should leave here. I don't want to involve other people in my problems. Rachel reached over and grabbed Abby's arm. You do not know it was him, Abby. She pointed at the note still lying on Cheryl's desk. And maybe that isn't his handwriting. Perhaps it's just similar. I just remembered. He mentioned a name, Cheryl said. I'd forgotten it until now. The rest of the message disturbed me so much it dropped out of my head. What was the name? Arch. He was talking to someone named Arch. That's Archie, his brother. She turned to Rachel. It was definitely him. Then we must get you home immediately. Rachel looked over at Cheryl. Did you see this man? Do you know what he looks like? Cheryl shook her head. He was hidden by the maze. If he walked right up to me, I wouldn't recognize him. I'm sorry. That's all right, Abby said. I've got to get where it's safe and think about what to do next. Look, Cheryl said, I heard him threaten you, and this note proves he also threatened me. I believe the police here will help you. Abby shook her head. You overheard a man on a phone, Cheryl. You can't prove it was him, nor can you prove who wrote this note. He hasn't done anything the police can arrest him for. I went through all of this before we moved to Nebraska. I was told he'd have to actually hurt me again for the police to step in. What about taking out a restraining order? Cheryl asked. I tried all that too. He doesn't care about them. And he told me if I ever filed one again, he'd make me pay. She stood unsteadily to her feet. I've got to leave Sugar Creek. I'm putting you all in danger. Abby, please, give me some time, Cheryl said. Let me see if I can think of something. Maybe we can at least convince him you're not in town so he'll take off. That would give you some time to figure out what to do. Rachel nodded and reached for Abby's arm. I agree, Abby. It's better to stand your ground and confront the situation here with people who love you, yeah? The tears in Abby's eyes spilled over. I can't believe you care about me so much. You don't owe me anything. I must seem so foolish to you to allow myself to get involved with a man like this. The only time to look down on your neighbor is when you're bending over to help, Rachel said. Abby put her hand over her mouth to stifle a sob. Finally, she nodded. Okay, I'll stay. For now. Ah, God will deliver you. You must have faith. I'm trying. Abby's eyes filled with tears. It's very difficult. Cheryl picked up the note and put it in her pocket. This message was for me because I overheard him in a corn maze. That doesn't mean Jerry knows you're here, since he obviously hasn't found you and he could already be gone. Maybe he's on his way to search for you somewhere else. That would be wonderful, Abby said. The hope on her face made Cheryl's determination to help the woman even stronger. You two go home and don't go out, Abby, for any reason. All right. But if I ever believe my presence here will put you in the line of fire, I'll leave, and nothing you can say will stop me. All right, I understand. Cheryl stood up and walked to the office door, and she thought of something. Do you have a picture of Jerry? I've never carried one in my wallet, and I didn't take any pictures of us when I left, for obvious reasons. It would help if I knew what he looked like. Abby sighed. He's medium height, brown hair, older than me, mid-50s. There's nothing that stands out about him. She paused for a moment, except for his tattoo. He has a tattoo of a tiger on his upper right arm. It's October. Too many men are wearing sleeveless shirts. Or not too many men are wearing sleeveless shirts. I wish I could give you more information, something that would help you, but Jerry is one of those people who don't stand out in the crowd. And to be honest, he may even be wearing a disguise. Why do you say that, Abby? Rachel asked. Because he's done it before. Once when I took out a restraining order, he showed up in my neighborhood dressed like someone from the telephone company. He even wore a wig and a mustache. Cheryl grunted. Finding him is going to be difficult if I don't even know what he looks like. She thought for a minute. What about social media? Does he have a Facebook page? He doesn't like Facebook or anything like that, and I wasn't allowed to have a Facebook page. I think it's because he was afraid my family might find out what was going on at home. My parents are living in Colorado now. We moved from Canton after I graduated from high school. Then, after I married Jerry, his boss offered him a position in Nebraska where he grew up. Even though I didn't want to move, he accepted the job anyway. As far as my parents know, everything is